warm welcome to you today from Lausanne. I'm delighted to host this discussion on embracing equity for IMD. I am joined by a fabulous panel of speakers, and they will introduce themselves in just a moment. As you join, please let us know where you are joining from. And as this is a webinar, please let me ask you to use the chat and to post any questions that you may have to us, and we will do our best to pick them up and answer them. My name is Heather Cairns-Lee. I'm an affiliate professor of leadership and communication here at IMD and a keen advocate for gender equity. And so it is my great honor to actually be the host of this discussion today on embracing equity as we see the International Women's Day symbol for tomorrow. I would like to start by saying thank you to Josephine Van Zanten, our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer here at IMD, who has assembled this panel of very smart ladies. And I would love to pass the word over to each of you to just say a couple of words about who you are, which company you're with, and perhaps which nationalities you hold in your being. Ashley, over to you.
Thank you so much for the minimal introduction here. And it's really a pleasure to be with everyone today. My name is Ashley Watson. I am the Global Diversity and Inclusion Global Head for Danfoss, based out of Denmark. My particular area, I am out of the United States. I am a proud African-American female, and my current location is in Washington, D.C. here in the States. So it's great to be here with you all today.
Thanks, Ashley. Let's head on to Cordula.
Thank you, Heather. My name is Cordula Jordan. I'm head of Global Feed Quality and Excellence, responsible for safety and quality at Schindler Group. And I'm dialing in today from Germany, Berlin, as I'm switching from Germany to Switzerland, well, almost every week.
Thanks a lot, Cordula. Diana, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Diana Marcati Bartoldi. I'm a proud Greek, in case you could not tell from my accent. I'm based out of Zurich, where I work and live for the past 10 years. I'm an international lawyer by trade, but I am here as the proud founder of The Boardroom, the first private club for women executives who aspire to become board members. So I decided to actually leave my 20 years of corporate career and dedicate my life to achieving a more equal world. So I'm delighted to be here today.
Thank you very much, Diana. Lovely. Elisa, over to you.
Hello, my name is Elisa Dotbach. I'm dialing from Switzerland, so very close to you, Heather and Josephine. And I'm the founder of Donna Coffee, so a brand that offers coffee uniquely and exclusively from women-owned coffee farms. And so I'm doing this now as an entrepreneur after having 25 years of experience as an executive at Nestle, also dealing with coffee. So yeah, and I am Swiss. I have Swiss nationality, and I'm a proud Catalan as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Elisa. And Nora, over to you.
Hi, hello, everybody. It's lovely to see everybody from all over the world, actually, almost all continents. I'm Nora Manaf. I'm the Group Chief Human Capital Officer of Maybank. It's a bank. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. I'm calling from Kuala Lumpur right now. It's close to 7:30 p.m. now. I'm responsible for 16 countries, so I do cover. I do travel, and I'm driving things from the 16 countries as well. So yeah, I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have shortly.
Thank you very much, ladies. And Josephine is our Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer here at IMD. She's the person who has orchestrated the panel and is joining us today. Thank you, Josephine.
Of course.
So why are we talking today about embracing equity? Embracing equity is a really important part of how we are dealing with inequalities in the world. Perhaps just as a starting point, it's helpful to differentiate between equality and equity, because these terms are often used almost interchangeably. Certainly for the everyday language, they're often used interchangeably, but they have quite specific meanings when we're thinking about creating more inclusive environments. So equality is really the idea that we treat everybody the same. We give everybody the same access to resources and opportunities. And it's based on the assumption that we start from the same place. And equity is really a way of thinking about creating more inclusive societies and organizations by acknowledging that we don't all start from the same place. We don't have the same resources or starting points in life. And so treating people equitably means giving people what they need in order to progress and advance in their lives, to lead fulfilling lives. So I think it's quite useful for us to just differentiate between those two terms as we start our conversation today. And why are we talking about embracing equity today? Well, tomorrow, as many of you will know, is International Women's Day, a day that for many, many years we have used to celebrate the advancement of women in the workforce and in society. And every year there is a symbol and a gesture to really galvanize our minds and our actions around what we can do to advocate for greater gender equality. And this year's theme is embracing equity, and the sign is a big hug. I'm sure, ladies on the panel, we can all do this, and we can encourage people at home to get this gesture and practice it, so that by the time tomorrow comes around, we're all in good shape for that. Now, let me start with a question to you, Ashley, around International Women's Day. We've been celebrating, commemorating International Women's Day for many years. Have we made progress in these endeavors?
Thank you, Heather, for the question. In actuality, the influence that the International Women's Day has provided has been tremendous. It's a big influence. You can see that infiltrate across the globe in many different companies, conversations. So the influence has been great. However, the progress has been minimal. And you can see that in various things, because we can say that we're about one thing, but actually taking the action to do it is a separate factor. And that factor has not been addressed. And we can see that being revealed in various organizations where men still possess over 80% of those leadership roles. And then you're seeing a slight trend of women CEOs taking a stand and coming into the visibility in the forefront. But then you're also seeing those women who are in leadership positions leaving their executive positions because of personal reasons or different ventures and passions. And so there's a systemic matter that a lot of organizations should take a look at versus just looking good on social media and embracing or supporting the effort. It's really what has happened systemically within your organization to ensure that progress is being made for your own in organization, to become role models for other organizations across the globe to do the same. And I think we fail as organizations to not be vocal about, or be vulnerable and vocal about what's not working. We're always talking about what the good things are, but there's also some bad things and some things that we should be working on. And there's others who have done that, paved the way before. So I think in order to see progress, companies should definitely take a stand on their commitment, being vulnerable that they have missed the mark, they're not where they would like to be, and support that and taking an action to really circumvent that, putting women in positions of stature, having them grow, provide development programs, having them become more visible and become more advocates for it, and not just a face or a physical feature to say, oh, well, we hit our numbers, we hit our mark. So the progress is definitely not there. And that's my take on that and how to answer that question.
Super, Ashley, thank you very much. I think a really important point you make about the difference between great influence, great in terms of raising awareness and visibility for gender equality, but progress still needs to be made. Diana, did you have some additional thoughts you wanted to share on that question?
Yeah, just to build on what Ashley was saying, and I totally agree that International Women's Day is an important day. It's a movement. It's very important for us, for more than 100 years to actually build on that. It's a great opportunity to recognize, the achievement of women, to celebrate success, create awareness. So it's great to have, but it cannot be a day. It needs, to be continuously, and it needs to be embedded in our, mentality, in the way that we think. And just, building on what Ashley said about what organizations are doing. So we see organizations indeed, maybe placing women and in leadership positions and doing that in a slow pace, but they are doing that. But we're also losing a lot of senior women. So what are we doing to retain that senior talent that has made it to the top against all odds, overcoming barriers and, stereotypes and biases? And what are we doing to actually keep these women? And we need those women because they're role models. And, the next generation is looking at those senior women. So retaining senior female talent is of tremendous importance. And we need to be conscious. As I said, it cannot be a day. We need to actually have that as part of our mentality. So very important day, not enough progress, but it needs to be continuously part of our leadership style and culture. So thank you for that, Ashley.
Yeah, super. I think also a useful reminder to everybody, it is a very important day, very symbolic and significant day that's been celebrated for many, many years. And it should not be just a day. It should be something that's embedded into our societies and into our workplaces. And of course, you ladies are doing that in the organizations in which you have leadership roles. And what I would love to do, I see you have another comment, Ashley, so let me come to that other comment. And then I would love to hear from each of you about what you're doing to embrace equity in the different organizations you're with. Because remember, everybody who's listening today, we have such a diversity, not only of women who are here on the panel, but also of the industries that they're working in, from elevators to banks to coffee to services to engineering, and very different sizes of industry as well. So I think we'll do a roundup of that in just a sec. Ashley, you have another comment.
Yes, I would like to appreciate Diana for supporting in the response. One rule of thumb that I've always used in this work is, if you're still getting questions as to why are there no men on your International Women's Day panel, or why is this important, then you still have work to do in your organization, because until those responses are no longer existent in your organization in dialogue, then you are making progress. So that's what my rule of thumb is if you're still continuing to have those responses within your organization, there's still more work that needs to be done.
Okay, yeah, so there's work to be done to level up the playing field for equality in gender in all sorts of different areas of humanity. And today, Josephine took the decision to put together an all-female panel to celebrate and elevate the voices of women on this particularly symbolic day. I'm going to ask Cordula, perhaps if we can come to you to kick us off with your thoughts on what is happening in your sphere of influence in Schindler and perhaps beyond, in terms of embracing equity. Cordula, over to you.
Thank you very much, Heather. In the beginning, when I was invited for this panel, I was thinking, what is equity for me? How important is it for me? And I have to say, equity is important because for me, it's a non-negotiable value in our social and professional lives. It's not only related to women, it's related to every one of us in our social and professional lives. And now working more than 35 years in a non-gender balanced industry, and elevator and escalator industry is non-gender balanced, my personal goal is to support equity, inclusion, and diversity overall within Schindler. And what is our equitable approach in Schindler, especially to increase the number of women to advance in leadership roles? And as we want women to succeed in leadership roles, we must individually look at each woman to understand their challenges and support them in their development. That's why we created a program called Diversity in Leadership in already 2017. This program is not only for women to grow for leadership roles, it's also for the managers to understand the women's needs and how to support them. And the involvement of managers is part of building sponsorship and support for women's development. The approach is not a one-size-fits-all. The training is very much tailored to the women's individual needs. And every woman in the program receives a coach. This is, for me, equitable approach because the women can develop on their own individual base to build up a network and also create their own visibility, a kind of their own brand.
Mhm.
And as we include the managers as well, they assess and agree together with the participant the development areas and have regular follow-ups. And now the most important thing for me was in this program, the managers receive also a regular coaching on how to support the participants. It's not only
Mhm.
the women who wants to develop in a leadership role, it's also for the managers. And I was one of these managers in 2020, having a female colleague in this program. It was absolutely important for me as a manager that I joined the program as well. And maybe now you might ask why it was important for me. I'm in a leadership position for almost 20 years now. Shouldn't this be more than enough for me to know what women need and how I can support them based on my own career within Schindler? And the answer is clearly no. Because diversity in leadership showed me that I need to take a closer look on the individual needs and challenges of people and to ask myself, am I biased and do I have stereotypes myself? And I learned in this program while I was taught to support my colleague in this program that I got eventually a bit blind for the challenges we are still facing to bring women in technical and operational leadership positions. There are stereotypes like she doesn't have the experience, she doesn't have the deep technical knowledge because we are a technical industry, she will get pregnant, she will stay at home, and the invest in the women will not pay off.
Mhm.
I can only say if my previous managers had followed these stereotypes, I would not be here today. The mother of a young girl in a technical senior leadership position, I would follow, or I would not pass all the stereotypes. So it was very important for me really to be part of this program. And when I talk about this program here under Embrace Equity, for me, it was much more important that we open our minds again for the challenges we are still facing to drive equity, inclusion, and diversity. And that we have to fight these biases and stereotypes, that we have to value differences. And I want to share one very basic key takeaway I had in this program while I was participating as a manager. To understand the challenges all people face to advance in a leadership position, it's absolutely crucial and important to put ourselves in their shoes, to remember that we all started with our own challenges in a way to a leadership position. And now my mouth is getting dry because I was talking so much.
So I would like to, I think this is wonderful and it's a very like tough and, you know, reality that we all have faced and we're facing, and it proves that International Women's Day is still very, very useful, and then there's still a lot to fight for. And I remember in my previous life as an executive at Nestle, the shift or the big change in mindset was done when the company presented the need of equity, or the way to develop an inclusive and equitable company was done through a business case. So a business case that demonstrated that equitable companies had better financial performance. So, and this was a no-brainer. So there was, it was a way to move away from emotional considerations and to all work towards the same goal. So we want a more performing company. So we need diverse teams, because diverse teams deliver better results. We need, we are missing on talent, on 50% of the talent, if we don't consider women as part of our workforce and talent. And then also demonstrating and showing that our company is equitable, is more equitable, makes it more attractive for young talent, for new talent, and to retain the best employees. So it was, to me, that was like a big change in companies' mentality. It was the business case. You could not go against this because you were going against the company's performance. So I wanted to share this with you because this was very, very strong. Mm-hmm. And so, but now in my new role of entrepreneur, I see how in many areas and industries that women are still underrepresented, not equally treated in terms of pay and opportunities. And I was shocked to discover that in coffee, so 70% of the work in the field to make a cup of coffee is still done by women. They plant the seeds, they take care of the coffee plants, they prune the trees, but their work is rarely paid because the coffee plantations are normally a family exploitation of a family farm, so it's seen as part of their housework. And also, most of the coffee lands are still owned by men. And so changing this situation is what motivated me to create my coffee company. So the way I'm trying to help women gain a greater part of the economic pie is to promote, encourage, and celebrate their success. And hopefully this will encourage others to follow. So it'll be, as we were talking about, role models. So to have more women at the decision table and be more integrated in the cooperatives and we know that supporting women in low resource settings, it helps them be more successful, but also it helps improve the community situation, because it improves the more resources dedicated to nutrition, healthcare, and education. And we know education is the great equalizer. So this is my what I wanted to share with you in the situation or the industry that I'm facing today.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, Elisa, because we know that women's economic participation is definitely below men's around the world. And so I think when you actually help to support the economic participation of women in the work that they're actually doing, to be recognized for that work and to gain their livelihood in that way, that's a real way in which you can embrace equity for the community that you are seeking to support. So thank you for sharing that. Nora, may I come to you to hear a little bit about, we've heard something from Cordula in terms of what it's like in Schindler Engineering Company, an input from Elisa, but let's come over to you in Malaysia and the financial world, which is often also an area where there is quite some gender disparity. Can you share some of your thoughts with us? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, of course, Heather. In fact, why don't I start with your initial first question to Miguel, in terms of the IWD Day and does it have the anticipated impact? Now, I call me a hopeless glass half full person, but I think it's really made a lot of traction, and just as we would say of technology, right? It's not about technology, but what you do with technology. Likewise, that's how I look at the IWD Day, the International Women's Day. It depends on what you plan and curate with it. But just listening to everyone here, here itself, we're quite diverse in terms of our experiences. Mm-hmm. For us, we've actually achieved 49%. women participation in senior management.
49%.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so, it's and I can say the same for many of the banks in Malaysia, in the financial sector as well. So it's quite diverse, I think, where we are. So how we curate the IW Day and any other platforms, I think it's going to be very personalized, if you like. So in terms of equity, what I would be doing, I would be pushing is in terms of the infrastructure, because all of us, we're leaders in our own rights. We have our own circle of influence, and all of us have to take ownership for curating that infrastructure that will provide equitability. So in Maybank, for example, how did we get to where we are? It's right through the talent framework, right? From recruitment, for example. If I give you an example from that standpoint, just 2 days ago, or it was just yesterday, we announced another appointment of another woman into our chief compliance officer position, right? First woman, right, into that position. And how did we achieve that? And it's from a diversity standpoint, we've put the policy in place, for example, that most organizations would have this, every vacancy must be advertised. So we've got that. We've got, of course, a succession plan process. So when there's a vacancy, there's an internal posting, right? So internal candidates, succession candidates, and then we've got our talent team mining the database for people who could have what it takes. So we line them all up, and this has ensured that we are diverse in terms of sourcing candidates for a position. But we've not stopped there. I am the executive sponsor for our Women Mentor Women Council, and our Women Mentor Women Council has been very instrumental in surfacing women for vacancies that we have. Our general manager of New York, the first woman to hold that position, did not come from the internal job posting. So that's the other thing about taking ownership. I think we need to step up as well, right, and make sure that we apply. We don't get enough of that, at least from my perspective. And even succession candidates, lining them up, it was still not adequate and still not inclusive enough. So the Women Council, actually, when we formed the Women Council, they were tasked to be sponsors, actual sponsors. So they host platforms and sessions to themselves get familiar with the talents, with the women in our organizations. Mm-hmm. So the candidate for GM New York actually came from the Women Council. But they all were lined up. Equal opportunity is actually alive and healthy in our organization. So once we've lined them up, we step back, right? So best person wins, man or woman. And she won, right? And so we're very proud of that. So I think it's about creating, I can go on about the other infrastructures, right? How we've intervened in bonus decisions for the wrong reasons, right? And we do that too. So the infrastructure where all of us have ownership, where all of us have influence, we must take ownership for curating and enabling equitability. That would be my Heather.
Thank you, Nora, for sharing that. I think it's super important what you say in terms of two key messages for me personally is the first is taking ownership in our circles of influence. When we're in a leadership role, we have a circle of influence. Are we prepared to look at what that circle is and see what can I do to step up and take responsibility in that circle of influence? Very important point that you make in terms of not pushing it off to other people. It's not the job of HR. I mean, I know you're the chief HR officer in Maybank. It's not the job of HR. It's the job of all of us. I think the other thing that I find very inspiring is that you talk about really everybody's responsibility to manage the pipeline of candidates into key into positions that can then be assessed. So it's about managing the whole talent framework and managing the pipeline, because there's often a metaphor that's used around women, which is the leaky pipeline, that we don't get enough women in. And so I love the way you're actually bringing your sphere of influence with the leaky pipeline to actually have your Women's Council responsible for identifying good candidates that can then go through the process on a par with other candidates, where men or other nationalities, whatever the background may be. So thank you for that. Now, of course, I'm really aware of time, and I'd love to pass the baton over to Ashley and then to Diana, so we hear everybody's voice in our Zoom room, and then we can open up to some of the questions that are coming in online. So Ashley, can you share with us some of your experience of being global head of DE&I in Danfoss, what you're doing for equity, diversity and inclusion? And there is a question that you may see in the chat on your perspective on the intersectionality of race, gender, and your experience as a Black woman. So if you'd just like to fold all of that into the mix, Ashley, I'll pass the baton over to you.
Absolutely. In about 2 minutes, right, Heather? I got to cram that in.
No pressure, Ashley.
No pressure. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Well, one, I appreciate the question that you're giving, Heather, and also in the chat. So I'll try to address both almost in the same context.
Super.
If I fail to do so, please feel free to follow up on something that I may have missed. So what we're doing here at Danfoss is really taking equity by the hand. So one is understanding of what equity means. And It's not because of International Women's Day. We were actually talking about equity in the fall prior to. So we've already kind of set the standard of understanding within the organization. What does it mean? The Embrace Equity for International Women's Day has just elevated the conversation even more. And when we talk about International Women's Day, we kind of use it as a avenue. But there's a larger platform, and the larger platform actually formulates into more discussion of what does it really mean. And tomorrow we'll be hosting our own internal conversation about bridging the gender gap. Does race really matter? So that's taking equity to the next level. So not only looking at gender, but how we identify as an individual in that gender category. So for example, we just have a panel of women. We're all from different diasporas or different cultures, if you will, and experiences, which goes into intersectionality. And how does that portray in our living lifestyle, professionally and personally? Because if you put us in the room and give us a same outcome, our experience and our journey is going to be different. Our challenges are going to be different. And that's what we're trying to make sure that our folks within the organization understand, that everybody's not treated equal. And this is what it looks like. But to ask probing questions to identify those barriers and inequities that may exist systemically, so we can change that infrastructure, similar to what Nora said, so we can take ownership to make that change. So those are some things that we're doing, in addition to a diversity audit, also known as a barrier analysis in some cases. What's happening systemically that we just do not see numerically, and then ask our employees, well, based on numbers, where does this actually lie? What are some of the root causes that are affecting specific communities and groups? So even though we talk about women right now, we're adding race to that. Then we'll continue the conversation to elevate even more, to look at other underrepresented groups, to see how does equity kind of influence, help, or hinder their community. So those are some things, just as to give a highlight within time limit, that we're doing here at Danfoss. For myself as a Black woman, I can tell you, when I walk into a room, depending on what space I'm in, if I'm the minority, I see my race is seen first. Sometimes when I'm speaking, I am also mistaken to be Latina, which I highly respect. But when they hear me speak, they're, oh, you're American. And then it's like, oh, well, Americans are always advanced. So it depends on the room that I'm in, is how I'm being seen by others in that lens. So I'm very aware of the different hats that I have. And I think that's an understanding, especially here in this organization, that we're passionate to understand more about. And that comes with being vulnerable of those conversations to understand how we all identify, because that's how someone may see us. And if we're not aware or have those blind spots of not having that awareness of how we identify, it does create a space of no awareness at all. Unconscious bias can creep in. Discrimination sometimes because you're just not aware of what you may say or conversations that you may be having. So for myself, I'm still learning. I'm not the best at it, but I am very aware of what space that I'm in and how I identify myself and how I represent myself in those spaces. And sometimes there's good stories and there's bad stories, and we can talk about that on a separate conversation of what that may look like, similar to what these wonderful women here may have addressed. But that is kind of everything in a nutshell, what we're doing at Danfoss and how does intersectionality play a part, not only for myself, but for others that I want to influence within the organization to continue to have dialogues and that focal lens and mindset to do.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Josephine, you have a question?
No, I meant to
Oh,
clap.
yes. I think highly important for us to be addressing the intersectionality of our different identities. And of course, our lens is around gender because we're talking around this topic just one day ahead of International Women's Day. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to think purely in terms of gender, because we do have so many other elements to the identities that we carry into the world with us. And so thank you for sharing. And also thank you for your honesty, Ashley. I love what you say. I'm still learning about this. I can really identify with that comment myself. I feel like I'm still learning such a lot, even though I've been a clear advocate for gender equality for a long time, having a double nationality, etc. It's really a constant willingness to stay open and learning is what moves this conversation forward, because that's how we can perhaps best get our arms around this. And just one thing, I wondered if you could say what it means, equity in Danfoss. You said you're taking it by the hand, metaphorically. Love that image. So what are you doing when you're taking equity by the hand, and what does it mean in Danfoss?
Absolutely. So what it means in Danfoss is that really we are becoming more aware of who we are as an organization, how far we've come, because we're hitting 90 years,
Right.
and how far we need to go. And understanding that even though we say we want to hire more women into leadership roles, what does that really mean? It's not checking a box of bringing a woman into the space. It's making sure that we accept this woman for whatever she brings to the table to elevate our business and drive that dollar sign even further. But it may not be a woman. It may be a man. It may be someone who's non-binary. It could be of any identifier that may look like. So, and if we do that, does the organization culture allow that space for that person to bring their authentic self? Yeah. Are they able to have the benefits to support them to have their a great standard of living? Do they have the appropriate pay that matches their skill set with the job and the trajectory of that job? Do we allow a space for that person to be vulnerable? If they're going through something within their home and they come to work, do we have a safe space where they can at least have someone they can talk to, they can lean on? Do they have a manager that's self-aware of some of the things, recognize the signs that something's just not right with one of my team members? How can I support them? How to have that dialogue? So when we look at equity, it's not just, oh, okay, we're making it fair for everyone. Really giving an understanding back to basics. That's what we use here in the organization, back to basics. And it's okay to always go back to basics, to just do that balance or scale, if you will, just to make sure, am I doing the right thing? Because it's the right thing to do, but just to understand that we do still have a business, but the people help drive our business. So let's take it for people. So that's what we mean when we talk about equity and taking it by the hands, is going back to the basics of how does it interconnect with our business operations, and not just, oh, well, this is about our people. We're doing it. We're making sure everybody's fair. No, it's a lot more deeper than that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And that really resonates with what Cordula was saying at the beginning about, managers learning how to support different needs within an organization. So really looking at the whole spectrum of needs and allyship within organizations. So thank you for that.
And I think after today, everyone will want to work for Danfoss. Ashley, what an amazing ambassador you are. Great thing that you're doing.
Thank you. The talent lines are open, so please apply.
Yes.
You didn't realize this was a recruiting conversation, everybody. Added benefits, hidden benefits there. So let me move the conversation to you, Diana, and hear a bit from you about what you're doing with your work in the boardroom in terms of advocating for equity. And when we've heard from you, we're going to take a look at some of these questions that I'm seeing coming online. Diana.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I need to say, Ashley, I'm hugely inspired and amazing things you said. Just before, moving on to, what, I'm doing with the boardroom, I think it's important what you said, Ashley, that, we need to actually acknowledge that we're all still learning, which means that we're all going to make mistakes. I openly say that, have now devoted my life in actually making the world a more equitable and fairer place, but still I have my biases, I have my stereotypes. So we all need to be aware that this is a learning process for all of us. We will make mistakes, but we need to be aware of our own biases, our own, stereotypes, and also check our privileges. Just listening to you talk, I was like, I do come from a privileged place, and I need to actually acknowledge my privileges, keep them in check. And how do I handle that? So really inspiring. Thank you for that. So it's also great to hear what, Schindler and, Danfoss and all the big organizations and, Nestle and so on are doing. By personal experience after, spending, 20 years in large organizations, is that sometimes those structures are holding us back a little bit. As we were talking earlier, is it a nature issue? Is it, shall I send it to marketing? And I sent it to the CEO, back to the GMs and so on. So you have this a little bit ping pong. So decided to actually quit my, corporate career, to actually try to change the world from a more, freer environment. And that's why I decided to become, a social entrepreneur with a very clear mission, to increase the number of qualified women on corporate boards, because that's my way of actually changing the culture. So for years, we have been trying to change things, bottom up, and it's amazing, but it's a little bit slow. So I decided to try a different approach and change the culture from the top. And that's why I want to actually increase the number of women on corporate boards. And it started obviously from a personal space. I think we all are driven by our personal experiences. So I have been the only woman on all boards that I have been sitting, and I'm still sitting, the only board member that is self-identified as a woman, the only woman in leadership positions, executive teams, and so on. So I felt that if I'm feeling this way, the other few women that actually made it to the top must be feeling the same way. So as I said earlier, we need to keep those women, we need to keep those role models. So I always say that I founded the boardroom to fight onlyness, to support these, very few women that are the onlys and they're lonely, just to make sure that they stay there and become role models. So my approach to embracing equity, to making the world a fairer and more equitable place, is changing from the top. So I want to bring more successful women in leadership positions, and more women on corporate boards will hire more female CEOs, more female CEOs will hire more women in executive boards. And then we will see, everything changing faster. That doesn't mean that we will not, continue with a, bottom-up approach, but my approach at the boardroom is actually bringing change from the top, have more successful women in leadership positions, and then bring that down.
Thank you, Diana. So we're very different approach, moving outside of a large organization, starting your own social entrepreneurial venture to encourage the growth development of women in who are able to take on board positions, because we know the statistics on that are still pretty minimal, to put it mildly. Absolutely. Now, I'd like to pick up a couple of questions that we've got online. The first one comes, Cordula, for you in terms of saying thank you for your inspiring comments. We're doing something similar in my company, but line managers don't attend the program. How did you engage the managers to buy in, to come on the journey and have the reflections that you have had? If you could just figure this out, that would be perfect, because you would do a huge service for many organizations around the world. So what are your thoughts on that? And then perhaps other people, I'm sure, Nora, you have something to say on this, perhaps Ashley too. So, yeah.
So usually to take the line managers together in this program is not an issue. They all open up very quickly. But then following through the program is the most important thing, that they really give themselves the space to open up, to have their own coaching on how they can lead people, how they can lead women especially, and what the women needs. And here it takes a lot of time, but usually we have the experience that it's an easy open up to do that, because they also get something for themselves in this program. And they can experience what it means to create a more diverse team. And we had already from, I think it was Nora, I think it was, saying that, no, it was Elisa saying that really this has a financial impact as well when we create diverse teams. So I think it was not an issue really to open up the line managers here, because they get something out for themselves, and it opened also their view on the topic.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that. For you, there was something in it for the managers themselves in terms of being able to be more effective leaders in actually supporting individuals in the organization. Elisa, you have something you would like to contribute?
I wanted to share with you that I was reading on the PME magazine. This is a Swiss magazine. That ranks the best companies to work for in Switzerland. And by the way, congratulations to Cordula, because Schindler was a number 2. So that's a great success. And the first one in the ranking was, for the second consecutive year, is Zweifel. This is a snacks company with only 400 employees.
Oh, with the chips.
Yes.
Of course.
The delicious chips. And so they one of the highlights of their success is that the company had obtained recognition for the balance between the workload. So it's not the balance private and work. This is, we're moving beyond this. Is the balance between workload and the flexibility to organize themselves to reach their objectives. So I think this elevates a bit the conversation about, private and work life balance, because it's now with the technologies it's kind of hard to say, but I like the way they value this workload and flexibility to organize your life to attain your objectives. So it comes to the choice of the individual, and I think that this is what we're talking about today is the equity. So it's like it's a very much, and I think it was Ashley or Cordula, everybody was talking about it, and about it's an individual. It's focusing on the personal needs of each employee. So it's ethnic, gender and background. So, and this to me is a revolution, because it requires a total shift in leadership style. And in the skills of the HR people in the company, in how the company is behaving versus the employees. So it's a little bit like I make the parallelism with the personalized medicine. So it's like each person needs a different approach to be able to flourish and to get to where he or she wants to get to. And I think that when this is a virtuous circle. So when the company understands this and treats these employees this way, also I think more women will be interested in going to the top and reaching the top. Because, when I was in Nestlé, the role models that were there, even if there were women in the top position, I was not interested in becoming one of them, because I was not interested in the style of, the leadership and how the company was managed at that time. nothing personal, but I think the companies are, through this approach, they'll become a better place to work for everyone. And so it's not going to be a club anymore. It's going to be a place where everybody can flourish based on their individual needs. So I think I'm very positive and big hope for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Elisa. Yes, Cordula.
Am I allowed to jump in here? Because I would like to share an experience. I was in the so-called management board in Schindler, Germany. And in the beginning, I was the only woman. And this relates a bit to what Diana was saying. And then the management board got a second and a third woman. And it changed totally from how we work together. And then we also had some people not from Germany. So we had a very well-balanced cultural and gender-balanced team. And it created a totally different atmosphere and a totally way of working together. And I think this is really important also, yes, encouraging the women to go for this next level and to the next step. Not only being the role model, one of the women on the top, but also having a team of women and then a gender balanced team and also a very, yes, balanced team in culture and yeah, everything.
I think you make a very important point, because Diana's metaphor of addressing oneness, onlyness, I think you called it, is very important, because we know from research that once minorities, whether it be men, women, people of color, people of different sexual orientations, reach about 30%, it's enough to start shifting a culture. Whereas when we have a single representative of an identity, then it typically doesn't do enough, and then it's very easy to be the only and the lonely only as well at that. So a very helpful point. I have one question that I really want us to address, which is from Patrick. I'm going to read it to you ladies. It says, coming back to the definitions of equality and equity, will we not need a period of managed inequality, i.e. favouring women in careers and recruitment in order to arrive at some point at gender equity? It's often not so transparent, and there's not really an honest debate about this. Nora, can I ask you to have a go at this? What do you think about, do we need a period of managed inequality, i.e., in some ways we're thinking of targets, quotas, whatever you might call it, to address this?
Yeah, I know we were at a point where we were, trying to decide whether setting a target and a quota is a good thing or not, right? But I'm a chartered accountant by training, and I measure things, right? So I think it's good to have a dashboard, and it helped us. It helped us in the beginning, right? And being transparent about it, but. It's again how you use it, right? For us, it was a communication, it was a rallying tool. Then, everybody wanted to take ownership, everybody wanted to chip in and make sure that, we achieved it the right way. So I think there is a place for that, but it's also about the quality of what happens within, and throughout the process. In terms of getting people to come in, for example, again, I thank God we're in a good place in a way, right? Like Cordelia's reinforcement just now. For us, we, for example, have another community. So it's creating a lot of communities, a community called Diversity Allies, and more than half are men, right? And so they actually have a very active involvement in making us achieve what we've achieved. But if I may, Heather, I actually also want to make sure that we are more outward focused, because I think again we are at a better place, and someone mentioned that again just now as well. We shouldn't be struggling at the baseline anymore. Right. And for me, we don't have time for people who are laggards. They will follow, but we shouldn't be at the lowest denominator. So outward focus, meaning, again, using what we have and the influence that we've got to rally actions to influence people beyond our organizations And by doing that, for us, for example, it makes even more people jump into the campaign, if you like, and drive it together. But what do I mean by the out focus? I think, Eliza, for example, if I read your profile, you bring in the women coffee growers. Yeah, I think you do that. For banking, as an example, what we've actively done and is very intensively doing is reaching out to women who need financial support, need transition management, if you like, right? And I'm very proud of one of our earliest cases where, and this is ESG really, right? Because it's a social issue that she's facing. She was the breadwinner, right? This is how we found her. She was a breadwinner. She was working in a hair salon, actually. You know how it is with hair salons, right? Normally it's the customers who talk, but in her situation, she was the one telling all her customers about her marital problems and how her husband doesn't have a job, So what we did was provided her with initial seed funding to open up her own business. Yeah.
So just in 20 seconds, Nora, because I'm conscious of the time and I'd really like to do a little roundup of hearing from everybody as we bring our conversation to a close. You gave that lady seed funding to start her own business, is that correct?
And it actually, made so much difference, and it helped her husband as well. And they reconciled. They were on the verge of divorce. So, things that we do can have bigger implications and more positive implications throughout the sustainability chain.
Thank you.
My point is be outward focused as well.
I like that. So 2 things that we've heard from you today. 1, manage your sphere of influence. And 2nd, be outward focused. What can you be doing out there in the community? Ladies, let's do a roundup of sort of a 30-second. What is your call to action today in terms of embracing equity? Ashley, can I come to you?
Sure. I guess it's because my name starts with A. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm just looking at you.
So what equity means to me, so right now it's being more visible and more vocal. Yes. I've been in this work for a long time and I've always been in the shadows doing the work. So now coming into this wonderful organization to really embrace this work is really being visible, being a role model and being providing the appropriate infrastructure and support that's needed for not only leadership, but middle managers to be those role models so we can all be influential in the cultural mindset shift. So that's really my main focus and my commitment over the next 2 years, not just a year, but 2 years.
Thank you. Not just for today and tomorrow, but for the next 2 years. Diana, let's hear from you.
I guess my short call to action is for all of us to understand that, diversity, equity, and inclusion is everyone's business. Gender equality is not a woman's issue. It doesn't mean that because I'm not a mother, I should not be fighting for mothers' rights. Just because I'm a woman does not mean that gender equality is not good for men. So equality, diversity, and inclusion should be everyone's business throughout the year and not just one day.
Thank you. Eliza, and then
I would say that, Cordula. Yeah, so if my call to action would be if you had $20 to drive impact on gender equity, how would you use it? And I'm going to tell you how I would use it. So I would rather have 200 instead of 20. So I would try to make sure that I spend money in products, services, and organizations where my $20 can have a multiplying effect, that they can use them to make changes in the world. So in my coffee business, I work with coffee producers, suppliers, organizations that help towards building a more equitable coffee company. So it's the power to change things of collective action. Okay, so and we as consumers, candidates, and leaders, we have the power to change things.
Thank you. Really important. Our collective action. How do we choose to spend our money? Is it going into equitable organizations? And Cordula.
For me, call to action is embrace equity as a value of life and live it as a role model, not only in regards of women, even though we are talking about women today,
yes.
but also for every minority, for everyone, we have we see in our lives. And I read one sentence, and I want to read it to you. It's, the doors are only open when everyone can walk through. And I really love this sentence because it describes it very well.
I think that's a beautiful metaphor on which to bring our conversation to a close. Bang on 1:30 Swiss timing. The doors are only open when everybody can walk through. Equity is really around seeing everybody as a unique, authentic individual and seeing them and elevating their capacity in the world. Thank you so much to all of you for being with us today for this conversation. Thank you, Josephine, for organizing. And I really hope this is a conversation to be continued. Of course, we knew we would be time constrained. We are time constrained. If you have other questions, please do send them to us, and we will share some outputs from our conversation very soon. We wish you all a good symbolic International Women's Day, and we hope, as the panel have said, that you continue the action for equality, for equity, to embrace equity for all people, beyond just tomorrow, but for in our lives. Thank you. Let's end like this.
Yes.